What's going on, Jeromes? So we do miss the daily Jeromes live stream. We miss the Q&A. We miss the interaction. We put it out to you, the Jeromes. Get a little Q's. We got some A's for this week. And I want to make this regular. I simply do not have the time to bring back the live stream, and I'm sorry. And, we just want to get back into this. It's a good time, but what can you do? Life sometimes gets in the way of us talking nonsense about our mid-tier but soon-to-be Super Bowl champion football team. So there you go. First one is from Reclaimer 117. All right, so we got a bunch of questions. We picked out a few. Sorry if we didn't get to your question, but yeah, keep it going. Reclaimer 117. Andy, should I approach Valentine's Day with my wife like Harbaugh did with his interview? So just going in thinking that you sealed the deal? That's right, man. That's right. More. So I am very fortunate in that the wife does not give two hoots about Valentine's Day. But from my experience, and again, investment advice is not a guarantee of future returns, but it's always more about putting in effort as opposed to extravagance, right? So, I mean, you could take her out to the most expensive restaurant in town. You could order great champagne from the Champagne region of France. It's kind of weird, as well as order some high-end jewelry, but that's pretty minimal effort, right? That's just money. That's not real effort. But if you make a nice home-cooked meal, if you, I was gonna say do arts and crafts. I don't know if arts and crafts are your thing. Oh, you could write her a song, like if you're a singer-songwriter. Sure, why not? But I think it's always more about effort as opposed to the actual end product. But we'll see. Yeah, don't go in thinking that you're just gonna be handed the job, man. Shaq Edwards, just want to congratulate you on rising Vikings podcast stardom. Thank you. Although we're still like the 17th best Vikings podcast out there. Let's not get twisted. And any chance a new O-line coach can actually use our current offensive linemen and scheme them to be at least average or to above average? I think that if the Vikings do land Mike Munchak, which we talked about in our earlier video, or Bill Callahan from the Browns, I think the Vikings will be a top 5 unit. I truly do, because the hardest thing to do in the league is get competent bookend tackles. And with O'Neal and with Darisaw rising up in year 2, the Vikings would have that. Now inside is where it's soft and marshmallowy. It's like the perfect baguette where it's hard and crusty on the outside, but it's soft and the inside. So the Vikings need to figure something out. Ezra is doing nice things at left guard if they stick with the outside zone scheme, which they probably will, given Modkin's background, given Kevin O'Connell's background. But they need to figure something out at the other guard spot. It's probably not Oli Udoh. I don't know if it's going to be Wyatt Davis. I have faith, but the Vikings do need to invest in that again. And also, of course, center is a big question mark. But I think that if the Vikings add some more competent pieces and bring in a Munchak or a Bill Callahan, they can really raise up the Vikings offensive line game. Travis, out of the rookies that didn't get the time of day last year, which ones do you think will get the most opportunity next year with the new regime? So most opportunity, I would say Patrick Jones, especially if they do move on from Danielle Hunter, which I don't want them to do. I was going to say maybe Chaz Surratt, but I mean, Kendricks is going to be that guy. And I think that Blake Lynch is going to get a big-time opportunity as well. I think great things happen when he's on the field. Maybe Troy Dye. But in terms of rookies from last year, I think Chaz Surratt needs a second look, as well as ISM. I think he could work his way into a solid wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type role, as well as I don't think Kellerman gets the time of day. Like I don't think that he's given the starter job, but I think he certainly could be QB2, depending on what they do in the draft and what they do with Kirk Cousins for sure. And of course, Wyatt Davis. Maybe Zach Davidson, the tight end / punter who can neither tight end nor punt. Sure. Helzelman 360. With many positions of concern questioned for the Vikings this offseason, would it make better sense for them to draft a cornerback with the number 12 overall pick instead of trying for a DN quarterback, as some mock drafts have been predicting? Well, since the Vikings do have so many positions of concern, I think that's why you have to go BPA. I think the Vikings aren't in a spot where it's like, hey, get this one position right, and then we'll be good to go. But no, the Vikings need an infusion of talent all over the place, and it could be cornerback if the right guy falls. If a Sauce Gardner or a Stingley or a McDuffie is there at 12, I mean, sure, all in. But also, if one of the top-tier edge rushers is there at 12, maybe you have to consider it. Or if Kwesi and company are really high on a quarterback and he's sitting there at 12, they got to think about it. So they do have to have all options on the table. The Asylum Gaming. Do you think backup players that stepped up last year have won? Do you think backup players that stepped up last year have won starting roles, such as Bynum, Willikis, Dantzler, players who are really good but never get a role? Nothing should be guaranteed under the new regime, because you're going to have O'Connell coming in, Kwesi coming in, who did not draft or sign any of these guys. You have a new coaching staff who's never worked with them before. Donatel could bring a different defensive scheme if he is going to be the defensive coordinator. So I don't think anything is guaranteed. I do think Kenny Willikis will get a high-end rotational edge rusher role. That bull rush cannot be ignored. Does need to add a little bit more to the repertoire, but what can you do? I think Cameron Bynum is going to be a starter. I think he's certainly proven that he could do that. I don't know if they re-sign Xavier Woods, and Harrison Smith is starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. Dantzler, I don't know. I still have faith in Dantzler. I don't think that you're obviously not going to hand him the starting job or anything like that, but can he compete? Can he get after it in year 3? He certainly does have that potential. Next up, David Hugan. Hooah! I just watched a YouTube clip, All Things Covered, which is a podcast with Patrick Peterson and Darren McFadden. Bryant McFadden. Although it would be funny if they just slipped in Darren McFadden for one of the shows and no one noticed or said anything. And then they talked about, oh, hey, what was it like running the Wildcat at Arkansas, man? And Pat said he was invited to one of the important meetings that the Wolves had before they hired the head coach. I really hope he's back next year. So that's interesting. So if that's true, that is super intriguing. So they're talking about a meeting before they hired the head coach. Was that after they hired Kwesi? So if Patrick Peterson is in the room as like a senior players council member to the Wolves and to Kwesi, it's probably a good sign that he has interest to return. Maybe it's a good sign that the ownership does want him back. I don't want Patrick Peterson back at $8 million, but if it's a little bit cheaper deal, absolutely. Caden Skull from the University of Utah. Go Utes. Thoughts on Devin Lloyd? Could we see him in purple next year? Devin Lloyd is a friggin' train wreck, man. Train wreck in all the best possible ways. Like, he destroys games. Like, you watch the 2 Oregon games, Devin Lloyd just gets after it. I freaking love him. I really love and respect Nakobe Dean, but I give the slight edge to Devin Lloyd just because of the physicality. He checks all the boxes, and I think that he's a great leader of men. I think that he can just get after it. Like Devin Lloyd, I don't know if Devin Lloyd is going to be on the board at 12. But if he is, even though I've just hyped up Blake Lynch and Chaz Surratt, it's Devin friggin' Lloyd, man. What are you going to do? Josh Imset. So after looking at the potential DCs, what free agents and draft prospects do you think will fill out the secondary? I don't think you can say like one for one. If they hire Donatel or Pleasant or Weaver or whoever that they're going, or Sean Desai, that they're going to draft this exact free agents or prospects. I will say that if it is Desai, if it is Donatel, if it is Pleasant, given that they do come from a defensive back background, that the Vikings certainly could put more emphasis on the secondary, especially cornerback, since you're pretty good to go right now with Bynum and Harrison Smith. So again, it would be ironic if the draft after the Vikings got rid of Zimmer is like, oh, all in on the corners, man. Tristan D. Also, you look at what Donatel did in Denver last year when they went after Patrick Surtain in the first round. I was like, ooh, baby. PS2. Tristan D. Do we go for KOC in the Super Bowl or Joe Burrow? I feel like I want the Rams to score 40, but I want Joe Burrow to win, if that makes sense. Jensen Blaine, if the Kwesi and KOC opt out, well, basically I just don't want a 13-6 or 13-9 Super Bowl like a couple years ago, the Rams-Patriots, whatever that final score was. If the Kwesi and KOC opt to develop their own quarterback in this year's draft, who would you want to see? So Malik Willis, I love Malik Willis. Just scratching the surface on that kid's lotto ticket, just watching his film at Liberty is just he's a stud. Watching him at the Senior Bowl during practice as well. I loved Desmond Ridder last year. I don't think he really progressed this season much as a prospect, even though he obviously was solid and Cincinnati got to the playoff. But you would have liked to see him do better against Alabama. I'm thinking about Malik Willis initially went to Auburn, and Kenny Pickett is intriguing. I have less questions about his hand size as I do his 1 year of production. Like, is that an anomaly or can that be reproduced? I don't know. Next up, Matt Myers. I'm all in for taking a step back in 2022 for 2 steps forward in 2023. Trade Kirk and anyone who won't be a major contributing member in 2023, 24. Smith, Thielen, Kendricks. Well, the thing is, I feel like the league is under a microscope now because of the tanking allegations from the Dolphins and the Browns. Maybe they're founded, maybe they're unfounded. Who knows? But I don't think that the Vikings and the Wilfs will have the indignity of just completely trying to trash 2022. Now, it could be a small step back if they trade Kirk Cousins, because it would make sense. $35 million in cap space freed up if they're able to get rid of the whole contract, as well as his trade value will never be higher. So again, I would understand that, but I'm not saying trade Cousins, trade Daniil, trade Thielen, trade Harrison, trade Kendricks. No, I ain't down for that. Next up, how many more do we got? All right, got 2 pages. If you could give a percentage of the likelihood outcomes for the Kirk situation, where would you put it? Also, what would you personally do? I would personally add a void year to Cousins' contract, split up his cap hit between this year and next year when the cap is likely to skyrocket in 2023, and roll the dice with Cousins for 1 more year. Because I think the Vikings are, because you saw all the games last year, all the games that were 1 score or less, the Vikings getting a 7-point lead in nearly all of the games that even the ones that they lost, where this team is close. And I think that a new offensive scheme, Kevin O'Connell, as well as an aggressive attacking defensive scheme, I think the Vikings could do some damage. And I think that Kirk does give you the best chance to win 2022. So overall likelihood outcomes, I would say 70% keep and 30% trade. They're not going to cut him, so that's 0%. But yeah, so 70-30. R free. Do incentives and contracts count against the salary cap? Can they get creative with some easily hit incentives rather than high base salary numbers? So incentives that are likely to be earned, like say a player has an incentive where, just an example, where they play in 5 games, where something that's super easy, that counts against the cap that year. But if you have incentives that are not likely to be earned, like say player XYZ is going to make first team All-Pro and yada, yada, yada. So that does not count against the cap that year. Now, if it is achieved, then that hits next year, right? So you can't really escape those incentives clauses, right? Tristan Bailey. Not going to lie, you would make a better GM than most GMs in the league. Hey, I could do better than Grigson. Miles, would you rather be stuck in a sauna for 12 hours with Mike Zimmer, Kirk Cousins, or Bud Grant? I think he'd die after 12 hours. Not Kirk, because, I don't know, I feel like even though there won't be a lot of talking, which that's the thing about saunas, you don't want a lot of talking. So I feel like Kirk would just make it awkward for some reason. Like he would have the towel up over his nips as well. He pull that move. With Zim, he'd probably be dipping the whole time. So, I mean, adding that stank to the hot, wet moisture, no. I pick Bud Grant. I mean, old guys in saunas, they never want to talk. It's very binary. They either never want to talk or they just talk nonstop, like it's the deli or something. They're just blah 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 blah, talking about these kids nowadays and the music. Get out of here. No, but Bud Grant, there's a story from his book. Now I may be just completely botching this, but I think it was a couple of the players. It was like, I want to say it's Mick Tinglehoff, maybe some other guys, maybe some assistants, but they were going pheasant hunting in South Dakota, and the players made a bet how long it would take before Bud said something on the drive, and they drove all the way out there, western South Dakota, and he didn't say a damn word, which is so Bud Grant, man. Stoic. That's right, baby. I pick Bud Grant. No, you. Do you seriously follow any other Minnesota team? And if so, would you consider having a segment for that team? So I used to be a big Twins fan when I was a kid. Kind of fell out of that. But now that I have kids, I feel like baseball's a great sport for kids. Getting outside, having a hot dog, not really paying attention one way or the other. I actually really like the Saints. Not the New Orleans Saints. Stupid cheaters, but St. Paul Saints. I think that CHS field experience in Lower Town is much better than Target Field, but what can you do? But probably not enough to actually talk about them. The only other team and sport I follow really hardcore is Liverpool, which is so weird. Luis Diaz, let's go, baby. Although that could mean that they are going to get rid of Mo, which makes me sad. What can you do? But, hey, Liverpool, they're going to win the league. That's right. Hey, Man City, watch your back. Coming for you, baby. Wolves are whatever. Never really got into hockey, which I grew up in southeast Minnesota, which is the one corner of the state that doesn't give two hoots about hockey. It's all football and wrestling. I do like the Minnesota United, the Loons, but not enough to actually do a video on it. So there you go. Elias Roosted. Are you more of an offensive mind or defensive mind person? And if you're a coach in the NFL, what position would you be in charge of? I've always found offensive line play extremely interesting in terms of just the strategy and just the chess match that goes in there. Plus, it's the only unit where you purposely strive to have the same people in there every single snap. Where defense, you're going to platoon, sub-package, etc. Wide receivers, you rotate out, running backs too. But you want your same five guys out there, no matter what. And that's always intriguing to me. So if I was going to, if this is going to be like a Ted Lasso situation and you bring in someone completely unqualified to be a coach, I would bone up as much as possible on O-line and go that route. All right, so a couple quick hitters. Speedy, who would be your quarterback one in the draft if Kirk was traded? Malik Willis. I think his ceiling is just higher than everyone else. Samuel Paradise, which player do you think will improve the most next year? All right, so who's going to be 2022's KJ Osborne? I will say, I think the Vikings will cut Michael Pierce, and I think Armand for Watts will become a stud. Put that out there. I'll say Blake Lynch too. Miles, who on the Vikings would you become best friends with? So I'm at the age now where being chill is definitely more appealing than just going out and getting crazy. So I would say like CJ Ham, Thielen, Harrison, they all seem pretty chill. Yeah, probably there. Although, Brian O'Neill seems low-key hilarious. He does. Plus, if you ever go out with him, you already have a bouncer. You're good to go. Or, from what I've seen on Instagram, I think Chris Boyd would be a lot of fun. Actually, no. I'll revise everything. KJ Osborne, just a guy who's all about work, all about family, all about just getting it done. Yeah, I respect KJ. So I'll say KJ. Mikey Max 123. What is the defining moment of your Vikings fandom? Probably when the Vikings drafted Randy Moss, because 98 was 12 or 13, and that was the first. Obviously, I was a Vikings fan before then. Chris Carter, Warren Moon when he came over, that was great too. But that was the first moment where I had watched a player in college, because Sports Center and Sports Illustrated and Sport Magazine, when that was a thing, it was before ESPN the magazine, which is also not a thing anymore. God, we're getting old. But I remember Randy Moss at Marshall University. You had this guy, and you couldn't get Marshall games, so all you got was the highlights. But putting up just insane numbers, because he played 1 year when Marshall was in 1AA, and then they moved up to 1A at the time. And him and Chad Pennington just completely smoking fools in West Virginia. And it's like, I want that guy on my team. And when the Vikings drafted him, that cemented it. And then Randy Moss's entire rookie year. Yeah, because I think they say both for sports, music, and pop culture, all you get cemented in. Your brain is wet cement until about your early to mid-teens, and then you're locked in. Whether teams you root for, whether music you like, it's locked. So it's funny, man. Ben Bauman, got to give the people a few of your draft crushes so far. So there's a bunch of them. Besides the obvious ones, I really like Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, but Quarterback-wise, Malik Willis. I still love me some Desmond Ridder. I still love me some Kenny Pickett, although I have more questions on Pickett. Wide receivers, Treylon Burks and Drake London. Oh, Kirky/Kellen Mond needs a tall receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, late day 2 is going to be a hell of a value. Calvin Austin III from Memphis is a lot of fun. Johnny Johnson from Oregon, late, could be a steal later on. Offensive line, I love Linderbaum. I love Kenyon Green. Of course, you're playing the hits. I've liked Zion Johnson for like the past 3 years. I'm not giving up on ZJ, who also took some center snaps at the Senior Bowl. Darian Kennard from Kentucky is just a freaking man-sized man. See here, edge rushers, Boye Mafe from Minnesota. Like I liked him even before he blew up at the Senior Bowl. I still think that he'll be a day 2 pick. I don't think that he'll work his way into round 1 because so the Senior Bowl and the Combine, they shouldn't amp up or they shouldn't downgrade a player more than a round. And I think Mafe was seen as a 3rd, 4th round pick before. I don't think that vaults him into the 1st round. Even if he does test amazing on the Combine, which he probably will. Nick Bonito from Oklahoma, I like as well, especially if the Vikings do transition to a 3-4. Interior defensive line, Travis Jones from UConn. Speaking of guys who did themselves some favors, man. Where if you're just, especially if they move on from Michael Pierce, yeah, makes sense. Noah Ellis from Idaho, son of Luther Ellis, his brother also went to Idaho. He was a linebacker on the Vikings camp roster this year. His first name escapes me, but I mean, yeah, Noah Ellis, he was 340 if he's announced. Just getting it. Love it, man. Linebacker-wise, besides Devin Lloyd, Chad Muma from Wyoming, probably going to be a mid-round pick. He's really intriguing as well. Cornerbacks-wise, obviously Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie as well. I mean, it's a great cornerback class. So those are a couple of my early crushes. I'm sure I'll add to the list. Let's see here. 2 more. Eric Rose, who's the next young Viking to make their first Pro Bowl? I am going to say... I'm going to say, that's going to be tough. That would be tough. I'm going to say Cameron Bynum makes it. Yeah, I think Cameron Bynum next year, full-time starter, has a phenomenal season, and he has 7 interceptions, and he makes his first Pro Bowl. I was going to say Darisaw, except tackle is so busy. Plus, since they don't differentiate between right and left tackle, you just have 3 tackles for the game. So it's like Brian O'Neill's taking up 1 spot. What are you going to do for the other ones? It's rough. Lastly, Miles, will the hot dish ever make a comeback to her? Producer Allie is poking and prodding me to get the hot dish back. Maybe we'll do a special one for, too late for the Super Bowl. Maybe we'll do one. I don't know. Again, a lot like the live stream. I love doing them, but time crunch. Yeah, it's rough, man. But that's it. That's a little Q&A action. Love you guys. Thanks for submitting questions. We'll do this more often. Maybe we'll do it once a week. You guys are the best. Skull production value.